What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the 10-7 MMA show. Back with myself and Justin James, professional mixed martial artist. And we got a lot of stuff happening in the world of MMA. By the way, if you guys are unfamiliar, we're now doing a show every Monday and every Friday, roughly around like 1:20 is the target. But make sure to check back in with us every week. We're going to have 2 doses of content and commentary related to the MMA world, primarily focusing on the UFC, of course. Yeah. And by the way, you're traveling right now, right? Where are you?
Yeah, I'm in Billings, Montana. I just got here about 30 minutes ago. I'm commentating for a fight, Fusion Fight League, based out of Montana. So yeah, they go to Billings this weekend, then we go back to Great Falls next weekend. Get a little traveling up here, make a little coin here. Doing what we love to do.
Now, when you commentate and you're going to these shows, how do you research about the fighters and learn about their skill sets and whatnot and the matchups?
Sure. Well, I mean, Montana has a pretty big fight base. You got like BKFC champion. He's a featherweight champion. Kai Stewart is here. We got guys like Jordan Christensen that are coming in from Las Vegas to fight. So, a lot of at first it was tough for me, because a lot of these guys don't have very many fights. But now I've been doing it for about a year or two. A lot of these guys I recognize. I know them by name. I recognize them by their style. And Montana produces some freaking killers. So, like I said, the first couple shows it was pretty tough, but now we got it pretty down pat. And like I said, I've seen these guys fight now. I mean, the little bit of research that I have to do now compared to before is so much better just because of the experience I've gotten over the last couple of years.
That's super cool. By the way, I know last episode we were talking about my weight being down to like 133, which is crazy, and me potentially fighting at flyweight if I ever had a fight. But that just gave me an idea too. Did you hear that Aljo has moved up officially to 145?
Well, I mean, it serves him right. I mean, he's a big guy, man. I mean, when you roll with him, he's always in great shape. He's always shredded. That's not surprising to me, especially later in your career. We're talking about an ex UFC champion. Man, he's fought a who's who. His last loss besides Sean O'Malley was Brian Caraway. Just to give you an idea how long it's been since he's lost. So I mean, yeah, I mean, he's going to get in. He's going to test his feet in a different weight class. He's an incredible grappler. He's an incredible fighter, and I'm really looking forward to see how he looks at featherweight.
Brian Caraway, who you introduced me to. That guy's a legend. Okay,
He's out of control.
He's out of control. That dude is one of the funniest dudes I've ever met. But yeah, I can't believe you handed Aljo's last loss. That's crazy. He's so funny. But anyways, yeah, that's wild. People are talking about putting him up against Max Holloway. How do you think that would go?
It's a very interesting matchup. Max Holloway, arguably one of the best technical strikers in the featherweight division, of all time. Losing to losing decision to before Volkanovski. I know he lost to Volkanovski a bunch of times, but I mean, dude, this guy's a freaking killer. And it's a great stylistic matchup for Aljo. I mean, if he gets on top of Holloway with his grappling, his wrestling ability, I'd like to see what he can do. I mean, unfortunately, I'm a huge Blessed fan, man. I can never go against my guy, Blessed Max Holloway. But man, what an intriguing matchup, and what a fight, what a welcome to featherweight for Aljamain Sterling. Just throw him right in the briar patch right away. Let's go.
And I mean, it's an amazing fight for Holloway too. And I have to believe if he wins that fight against Aljo, have to warrant another title shot. That's beating a champion. So, and who knows, man? At this point, man, bantamweight is so crazy. I know we're getting a little off topic because we want to talk about Ian Garry at the beginning, but dude, that'd be crazy, man. Imagine he goes in and he wins. Who knows what's going to happen with Ilia Topuria versus Volkanovski? I feel like a lot of people are picking Ilia. So wild, man. Bantamweight is on fire, and you got Merab, and you got Corey Sandhagen supposedly is going to fight I think it's Nurmagomedov. That fight has been talked about since the what's it called? That one podcast. They just the Pulse 10. They just interviewed Dana White, and they saw that matchup on the wall. Like crazy stuff going on right now in bantamweight. Bantamweight's insane. Okay, but anyways, let's get to the topic at hand. We talked about this a little bit on Monday, and things have just gotten crazier. And I want to talk about Ian Garry, and you might not know all the ins and outs. You don't, follow all the gossip like I do in the world of MMA and the UFC, but he has just been getting hammered, him and his wife. And we talked about this. I think a lot of it is unfair and just prying unnecessarily into his personal life. But his wife and him, they're clapping back. He just talked about, and your boy Sean Strickland has not, obviously, he's not afraid to speak his mind. Ian Garry just threw out the idea saying he might want to go up and challenge. I don't even know if this is obviously possible, but he's saying he wants to challenge now the middleweight championship title against Sean Strickland. I think as a result of all this drama that's been brewing. And it's just wild. And as bad as we might feel for Ian Garry and his wife getting hammered like crazy, I wanted to get your thoughts because to me, this appears like potential rocket fuel. Ian Garry is not trying to be a good guy. He's not trying to be beloved by everybody. He goes hard in the paint. Remember the things that he did to Neil Magny and even to Jeff Neal before that fight was canceled, wearing the mugshot of his DUI arrest. He doesn't care. I mean, that's not a classy move. That's not a cool move. So this is just getting more hate and more people on his case. And I feel like this is the ultimate jet fuel if he plays it the right way and he gets a definitive win against Vicente Luque, which most people think he will, to shoot him off to superstardom. Like, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think he definitely has superstardom potential, man. I love the guy on the mic. I mean, watching his last fight really drew me in. This guy is an incredible striker. Now we talk about Sean Strickland versus Ian Garry. All right, now he's, his body's writing checks, or his mouth's writing checks that his body can't cash. Sean's just going to be too big for him, just a little bit too much of a man for him. And that's not saying that he's not a great fighter, because he is, but knowing Sean personally, that's just something that Ian Garry does not want to handle right now, this early in his career. Now, I think Ian Garry needs to stay focused, stay humble and stay hungry, and stay in his own weight class for now. Because again, writing checks that your body can't cash, or your mouth writing checks your body can't cash, isn't doing anything good for the sport. Isn't doing anything good for his situation. Isn't doing anything good for his career. Because at the end of the day, he steps up against Sean Strickland. Sean Strickland's going to slap him in the mouth. If Sean Strickland sees him, out and about, and Ian Garry wants to run up on him and show him how tough he is, Sean isn't going to fuck around. He's going to slap him across his face.
As we saw with that footage about Sean going out when somebody was trying to steal his car or do something weird, he has no, I don't even know if he knows what the word scared means. I think he just reacts and goes, and what a legend. But anyways, the other thing I like about Ian Garry, I know a lot of people don't like him, this and that. Now I'll say this. When I listen to some of his interviews, I'm not like I don't love listening to his interviews. I love listening to him at press conferences, and he stirs up stuff, and he's interesting. He makes it entertaining. What can I say? But what I really like about him is that he said at one point, he's like, at one point he wants to take, I don't know how true this is, but he said he wants to take a year off from fighting in the UFC to specifically train jiu-jitsu and become a jiu-jitsu champion. I thought that was incredible. Like, how cool is that? Who would do that? But he just wants to become an amazing, well-rounded fighter. He's super driven. I think he's super dedicated. Maybe that's why he got kicked out of the gym in the UK with Leon Edwards, because he's so focused and so driven. Maybe it's hard for other people to be around him because he's always talking about his quest and wants to be better. But anyways, I thought that was so cool. Does that tell you anything in terms of a fighter mindset, where he's at? Or do you feel like you hear lots of guys say stuff like that?
Yeah, a lot of guys say stuff like that. When you talk about taking a year off year off competing so you can, work on other aspects of, I mean, how do you pay your bills then? It's not like he's a superstar where he's making 100 million a fight, or a million a fight, or 500,000 a fight. I don't even know if he's making.
Oh, wait. I think your audio went out. Wait, I can't. Wait. Justin, I can't hear you. I think something just happened to your audio. Do you want to try and rejoin? Or maybe your Bluetooth picked it up or something? Let's see. Ah, shoot. Yeah, leave and come back. Okay. I want to hear what you have to say. All right. Justin's rejoining while I eat my lunch, my bacon. Burger on a no bun. But anyways, yeah, it's super fascinating. I want to hear his perspective, because when I hear stuff like that, I hear fighters being so dedicated, so devoted. Again, it goes back to an entrepreneur mindset. That's something I'm much more familiar with. But if you have that mentality that you're going to do whatever it takes to be the absolute best, that always gives me a vote of confidence for a fighter. So anyways, you were saying, Justin?
Just saying, taking a year off training, it's not something that I feel it is at a point in his career where he's able to do that. I just feel unless all the drama's right and how to become a wag is flying off the shelves right now, and Sugar Mama's taking care of him. Because as a fighter, I mean, we don't make a lot of money, until you are a superstar.
Yeah.
And I can't imagine, him being in a position financially from MMA just to take a whole year off training to focus on grappling, because even if he does take a whole year off just to focus on it in 1 year, I mean, he's gonna be irrelevant. So we'll see how it
Okay.
plays out.
By the way, that book, How to Be a Wag, Jesse on Fire did a whole thing about it because she responded and she said it was a joke. And if you actually listen to it, it does seem like a joke. So I think it's like it's made in sarcasm. So whatever. I mean, like we both said, dude, who cares? She's older than him. He's younger. Whatever floats your boat. Even I'll say this too, because your boy Sean was really hammering him for like I think the amount that he's allowing her to kind of manage his career and stuff like that. But at the end of the day, I don't know. I don't know what your thoughts are, but yeah, she has more experience. Perhaps he acknowledges that she has a certain skill set, and maybe they're divvying up things accordingly. I think that type of thing can happen in relationships. I don't know what's right or what's wrong, and maybe he has a hard time running social media. I don't see it as like such a terrible thing, like everybody's going off on them. But anyways, that's my thoughts. I assume you kind of agree with me.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, now I want to talk about this. I want to get people's thoughts. I have an insane idea for UFC 300, and it's kind of a strange one. So here's what I'm going to do. I am going to write it in here as the topic, and then we're going to see what you think. And obviously, like I'm more up on this drama than you are because as I mentioned, I love the drama. But here it is: Ariel to interview Dana White for UFC 300. I was thinking about this the other day. So Ariel came up with the UFC. He's been there since the beginning. And despite all the drama he's gone through, he has stayed with it. He's stuck around. He's gotten that best MMA journalist 13 times in a row, which is insane, especially considering all the drama and the beef. And they tried to get him out of the field completely. Even Dana White, Ariel talked about when he was at ESPN, Dana White wanted him gone, etc. And I know they just clash and they don't see eye to eye. But at the end of the day, Ariel Helwani has done a tremendous amount for the sport of mixed martial arts and for the UFC, despite him being critical sometimes. But the fact that he's sort of has this external position is what makes him such an amazing journalist, because he doesn't have limitations or boundaries. He can ask whatever he wants because he's now got his own brand, his own audience, his own following. And he's already on the outs with Dana White. So he's got nothing to worry about. Now, Dana White, would he ever do this interview? Chances are slim to none, right? He is his own boss. He runs his own ship. He sits down and partners with people that he wants to and not because he has to. He's talked about this with the Bud Light deal recently. He partnered with them and does business with them, not because of the money or because of anything, right? This is his own words, because he felt like morally aligned with a lot of the principles of Bud Light and so on and so forth. So to me, this would be an instance where, look, he doesn't like Ariel. Who cares? He doesn't care about the views. He doesn't care about the clicks. Doesn't care about the buzz. He just probably would say, I'm not going to do it because I don't like the guy. And that's all I need to say. But Dana, to pitch to him, my thoughts would be this. What a throwback. UFC 300 to the beginning, to back when they were boys, to back when they used to talk and have an interview. And like Dana White's not afraid of anybody. So and he knows how Ariel interviews, and he'll be fine. Like obviously he can be fine navigating that. Ariel has said that he would be open to interviewing Dana White or reconnecting if Dana ever said, hey, let's bury the hatchet, or not even bury the hatchet, but let's do a sit down. So imagine that. What are your thoughts?
Unfortunately, I just don't think it's ever going to happen. I think Ariel's an incredible journalist. When he was working with the UFC, I thought he did a really good job. I mean, now that he's kind of on the outs, but there's a common thing with Dana White is when Dana White cuts you off, he cuts you off. The thing about like Francis Ngannou, we're talking about the best heavyweight fighter in the world, not best heavyweight MMA fighter, not best heavyweight boxer, but best overall heavyweight combat sports fighter right now. It's Francis Ngannou, and Dana White wipes his hands of him, and I really hope something changes about that. But with that being said, if you're willing to get rid of arguably one of the most popular MMA fighters in the world right now and have no negotiation power towards that fighter at all, what does Dana White give a fuck about a journalist for?
Yeah, you're probably right. Is that, from your perspective, is that something that would excite you to watch?
Um, I would tune in for sure, just because not so much of the topic sense, but just to see how the energy is. Like I want to like because and here's another thing too,
Mhm.
and I might get a little bit of flack for this, but I don't think Dana would do it just on the sense of if he does it, he might feel that he lost. And what I mean by that is he's cut this guy off. He's not going to give him another shot, and he wants to make that known. Whether you're a fighter, whether you're the best fighter in the world, whether you're the best journalist in the world, if Dana White doesn't need you, he doesn't need you, and he's gonna try to prove that anytime he can. And again, whether you're a journalist, whether you're a fighter, he wants everybody to know that he doesn't need to bend to anybody. And I think Ariel Helwani falls under that category.
And that's a fair point. That is probably true. You know, I guess the way that I'm pitching it to myself or to Dana, theoretically in my mind, will be, hey, we done that. We cut ties. He doesn't need you, but he's not intimidated by you interviewing him, and he's fine. He'll sit down. Maybe you can convince him to do it from that standpoint. But I think you're probably right. I think you say, hey, I wash my hands of you. I want to show you that I don't need you. And it would never happen. But imagine if it did for UFC 300. Holy smokes!
Sure.
If you kicked it off with a sit down interview, like an hour-long interview. So for somebody like me who's so into MMA media and into the interviews, I would flip out. I think that thing would get like 10 million views.
Oh,
Imagine,
it definitely be popular, but you got to look at the flip side of the coin. A lot of people might look down on Dana and be like, "Oh, well, why is he doing this? Why, maybe he doesn't have as much power as we thought." And I just feel like Dana White's a guy that doesn't ever want to, reveal his cards per se. He never, he always has a card in his back pocket. And if he starts doing something like this, people are going to start questioning why and what's his motive to do that. And because as of right now, there's besides the entertainment value that you and I would get, there isn't really any reason to do it.
yeah, I think you're right. And I think at the end of the day, he does those certain things. Actually, I think there's a twofold reason. Maybe there's a little bit of ego in there, but I think also he probably does it for a reason. These are calculated moves. He's showing that to set a precedent, right? Just like a court of law might. So I think I think you're absolutely right, sadly. But man, would it be so cool? Okay, so that's my insane idea for UFC 300. I want to make a second video where I go through all my reasons why I think it'd be amazing and why I think it would benefit both Dana White and Ariel, but we'll come back to that. Okay, I want to talk about this weekend now. And in this weekend, the first fight I want to talk about is Beneil Dariush versus all right, Sarukian. Let's see if I can spell this right. Sarukian. I'm gonna put. I don't even think I got it right, but here, let me pop this up. Meanwhile, let me look at this. But how familiar are you with this matchup?
I'm really not actually. I've seen it on paper a couple times. I'm a big Beneil fan. I think he's fucking awesome. And when I was in the UFC, I was able to work with Beneil a bunch. I was able to actually talk to him. He fought a former opponent of mine, Jakar Close. So me and Beneil always had that common denominator between us. But as for this matchup, I'm really unfamiliar, and I know you're not because you're super up on this right now. So let's hear it. Let's see what you got.
Well, Sarukian is an up and comer. I think he's 26 or 27. He's amazing. I think Beneil slightly has it. Let me see the odds. I think he's slightly favored, but it's a weird fight. And this is what I want to add. By the way, he was at your last fight.
Yeah. Beneil was there. Yeah, for sure. I talked to him in the back before I walked out.
Oh,
Yeah.
you did? Okay. Yeah. I saw him. I was like, oh, sweet. But, I didn't get a chance to talk to him. But yeah. Let me look at the odds real quick. And Beneil is the one thing I wanted to talk. Oh my God. What? Sarukian is favored minus 320? Okay. I did not think that was going to be the case. I mean, look, Sarukian's an amazing fighter and he's an up and comer, but I still thought Beneil was going to be favored. So that's very interesting. What I wanted to ask you about this is like Beneil's such a well-known fighter, and Arman Sarukian is still an up and comer. He's still young. Why? And Beneil was asked that too. Why is he taking the fight? It doesn't really help him, even if he wins. What is your perspective? Why would somebody in Beneil's position, who's basically arguably like one fight away from a title shot, and I don't even think the problem is this fight, I don't even think it moves him closer to a title necessarily, but why would you think he would take this fight?
Dude, I don't know, man. I'm gonna be honest. In the position he's in right now, coming up against a hot up and coming fighter, especially with Beneil, he's a little bit older. Some people might think he's on his back, on his downside of his MMA career. The backside of his career. If he takes a loss to a big up and coming guy, like you're saying, I agree with you in this lose situation. He beats him. All right, he beats somebody that most people may have never heard of before. But if he loses, I mean, now we're talking about, all right, we're not fighting for a title anymore. Now we're fighting for paychecks because we're at the end of our career and looking for paydays. So I'm not really sure why he would take this fight unless he looks at the matchup and says, this kid, doesn't have my skill set just yet. He's a great fighter, but I definitely feel I have a big edge. Yeah, right. He has because he's not going to, if it's a 50-50 fight, and right now it's not a 50-50 fight according to the odds makers. So
Yeah.
I'm actually really, really confused why he'd take this fight. Maybe there was some outside pressure. Maybe he was promised something. Hey, you fight this up and coming guy. We want to see where he's at. And regardless if you win or lose, this is next for you. Because he has
Right.
to have some incentive. And the UFC isn't always going to give incentive. But there is a gambling or there is a ticket you can get. Especially when you're in the top 5, top 10. Hey, I'll take on this, but I want this in return. So I'm kind of curious to see what the flip side of the coin is because I don't see very much positive upside for Beneil in this situation.
Oh yeah, me too. I mean, maybe it's just as simple as it's like a really big payday. They give him an amazing deal, an
Sure,
amazing payday, and
absolutely.
in combination with the fact that, like you said, maybe he sees something that he feels super confident about getting the victory. So maybe it's some combination of that. But either way, I'm excited to see it. I really do hope Beneil wins because I don't know. He's 34, and I think he should still get that title shot that was sort of, I think, assumed to be happening. And then he fought Charles Oliveira, and then he lost. Kind of. I think a lot of people were picking him over Oliveira, but I'd love to see him at least get one crack at the title, maybe against Islam or whoever's holding the belt at that time. But let's see what happens. And yeah, that's an exciting fight. Last fight I wanted to talk about, which is also tomorrow, which is a pretty cool one. Bobby Green versus Jalen Turner. Okay, let me throw this up here. So Bobby Green versus Jalen Turner. First of all, what do you know about Bobby Green?
Dude, love the guy, man. I've been a big Bobby Green fan for a very, very long time.
Mhm.
When my first, but even before I turned professional, one of my roommates, my college roommate, Darren Cruikshank, UFC vet, he fights him. He has a contract under Ryzen right now. He fought Bobby Green for the King of the Cage championship back in the day. I don't remember what year it was, probably like 2012, maybe 2013. Maybe I might be way off, but it's somewhere around that timeline. And, they get in there and he ended up beating Darren with a guillotine. And man, Darren Cruikshank is one of the best fighters that that I've ever met, and one of the best athletes I've ever met. So to know that Bobby Green at the time was able to not only beat Darren but finish Darren, that caught my attention right away. Now fast forward 10 years, I get to the UFC. My very first fight against Frank Camacho, Bobby Green's on the card. We're sitting next to each other. Dana White's giving his speech. Bobby Green is always was chirping Dana the whole time. I have it all on video. It was a very surreal moment of mine. So when people talk or mention the name Bobby Green, it really hits home for me because my UFC debut, me and Bobby fought on the same card a couple times in my stint in the UFC, and always having him there. In the background, always chirping everybody, chirping Dana. He was always a great piece for me to listen to and for entertainment. I think he's an incredible fighter, and I think Jalen's super tough, up and comer, long, rangy striker. But Bobby has that dog. Bobby's going to get in his head. Bobby's going to be talking shit to him during the fight. Saying, he's going to be Bobby Green, man. And like I said, I'm a big Bobby Green fan. I'm really looking forward to this fight for him.
What do you think about this? The odds makers have Jalen Turner at a minus 265. Do you agree or disagree?
Um, I think it's a little high. It's a little inflated, because he's that up and coming guy. Bobby Green has stepped up on short notice. And I remember one time, I can't remember who it was against. If you look at Bobby's record, like he stepped up on a weak notice against a top 5 guy and beat him, or maybe it was a top 8 guy and beat him. And I was like, dude, this guy's a fucking dog. This guy's a fighter. He shows up. He's ready to fight. He's ready to throw it all on the line right now. So if I was a betting man, which some people have known me to be, I'm taking Bobby Green at plus whatever it is.
I think it was plus 175.
Yeah, I'm taking plus money on Bobby Green all day. You can't count him out, man. He's hard to finish. You know, Jalen Turner is a really good striker, but Bobby Green has some really good striking as well. And just the odds in that favor. I mean, he only has to win 1 out of 2 times for it to be a profitable bet.
And I think Jalen Turner has, yes, I think if I remember correctly, Bobby Green in his last victory was also the underdog. So they keep making him the underdog, which is interesting. But Jalen Turner has had some issues making weight. So the fact that this is on short notice would lead me to believe that that's going to be another potential problem or potential stressor. So I'm with you. I would favor Bobby Green in this fight, but I'm super excited to see it. Man, I was so excited to see Dan Hooker. I'm so bummed, but I like Jalen Turner a lot too. So this will be pretty cool. Yeah, it's a good fight night. And then we're just 2 weeks away now from UFC 296. We already did a recap of that, but we're going to continue with that as well. It's only a matter of time until Colby Covington starts popping up in the media and starts doing interviews. That's going to be crazy. We got Ian Garry, we got Patty Pimblett, we got Tony Ferguson. Holy smokes, it's going to end with such a banger. But anyways, that's it for today. So we got Bobby Green, and I think, are we in agreement? Are we both picking Beneil or for Beneil versus Sarukian, or where do you stand on that? Oh, okay. Justin had to bounce, but he might be coming back. Let's see. But anyways, we're just about to wrap up. So I do want to say to everybody, to the folks that are watching, I know we got a small audience still, but we're growing and we're going to keep at it. Thank you guys so much for joining. Thank you for the likes, for the engagement. We really appreciate it. And actually, I think here he comes. He comes back. Justin, I'm going to add you back in just to get your final thoughts on Beneil Dariush versus Sarukian, and then we're going to wrap up.
Yeah, man. Like I said, I mean, it's a huge odds play. Like Beneil has the experience, he has the mental edge, but can his body keep up? You know, he's 34 years old. I'm 34. I can relate. Your mind isn't as sharp. You have the experience, but can the body do everything? Man, I'm gonna take Dariush because I'm a Dariush fan, and he's an old guy like me. So let's go, old dog going against the young dog. Let's see who can bite harder.
All right, sounds good. Okay, that's it for today. We will see you guys on Monday. Thank you again for joining, and we will see you in the next video. Take it easy.